That's all you need to know about the subject. Do you get it? Now, let's go to the next clausal element, which is what? The predicator or the verb. The predicator. Now, let me give you a sentence that has predicators. So we have the examination seemed very difficult. The examination seemed very sorry. Problem here. Difficult. How come I keep forgetting to put an L here? Now, seemed is our predicator. Let's go to the next one. Janet looks beautiful. Janet looks beautiful. Looks. She danced joyfully. She danced joyfully. Do we also have the place, or this place rather? This place stinks terribly. Stinks. My mother ate my food. So all of these items that have been underlined here are what we know as the predicator in a sentence. So as you can see, seemed is a predicator of the first, looks is the predicator of the second, danced predicator of the third, stinks predicator of the fourth, and ate predicator of the fifth. So let's just go straight to the characteristics of the predicator. Characteristics. I hope you're enjoying the class. I believe you are. Characteristics of the predicator. Now, one of the characteristics of a predicator is, number one, it is the most central element of the clause. Yes, the most central or obligatory element. So that's the first thing you need to note. The first thing you need to note about the predicator, the most central or the most obligatory element of the clause. That's it. Like, there is no sentence in English that should be without a verb or a predicator. No sentence in English at all. If you see any, that means that they've actually only ellipted the sentence, which that will still be one of the exceptions that I am not willing to talk about in this class today. So the predicator is the most central or obligatory element in the clause. Without it, there is no sentence. Without it at all. I mean, without it, there is no sentence. As a matter of fact, for you to know what a clause is, all you just have to look at is what are the verbs or predicators in the sentence. Do you get it? So when there is no predicator or is a clause, then, and when there is no predicator or a verb rather, you have not yet gotten a clause. So that's just it. So without it, without the predicator, no sentence can be formed. That is it. And by this we mean that those other clause elements may be optional at one point or the other. Yes, every other clause element, every other, including the subject that we said to be the second most central, could also still be optional. So every other clause element could be optional, but not the predicator. The predicator should never be optional. Take note of that. Should never be optional. Should never be optional. Like I said, there may be exceptions, but I'm not going to talk about the exceptions for today. So the second one is that it is usually medial rather than final or initial. Second characteristic is usually medial. So what I mean by that is that, we say that the subject usually maintains the initial position in a sentence or in a clause, but for the predicator rather, it is usually medial in all cases. So rarely would you see the predicator at the beginning of a sentence or at the end of a sentence. It is extremely rare. It is usually medial. The next thing is cannot be moved to a different position in the clause. It cannot normally be moved. So that is that it can't really change position. Cannot really change position. Change position. So the predicator rarely changes position. Like I said, it is the most central item. It is the most obligatory item. It is medial. Medial, that is, you can only mostly find it at the middle of a sentence, after the subject and maybe before the object or the complement, and then cannot really change position. Yes, cannot really change position. It is very rare for you to see the subject being moved from one position to the other. It is very rare. Another thing, it usually comes after the subject in the, of course, usually comes after the subject in a sentence. Like I said, it is medial, so maybe we should still put it so. Usually comes after the subject. Usually comes after the subject. Another one. It can be the only clausal element in an interrogative, in an imperative sentence rather, can be the only clausal element, can be the only clausal element in an imperative sentence. Sorry. Sentence. So let me give you an example of an imperative sentence. You have something like go, clap, sit, dance, eat, jump. Now, so these are all commands or imperative sentences. So even though they're made up of one word, those one words are still making up a whole sentence. So that's just it. So in a command or an imperative sentence, you could actually have a one word making up the whole sentence. And then, so the predicator or the verb can be the only clausal element in an imperative sentence. Do you understand that? I believe you do. Then let's go to the next one. It is realized by the verbal group. Realized by, the verbal group. As simple as that. Realized by the verbal group. That's this predicator for you. Realized by the verbal group. All the time, usually realized by the verbal group. You can never have another item realizing the predicator. So that's all for the predicator. Let's go to the next clausal element, which is the object. The object. Which is also known as the complement extensive. But for the sake of this lecture, I would prefer to call it the object. Now, this is another element of the clause structure. It is, however, not too central and not too peripheral. Yes, not too central and not too peripheral. Not too central, not peripheral. You know, while the subject is the performer of the action, the verb or predicator is the action itself that was performed. The object is usually the receiver of the action. It is usually the receiver or the undergoer of the action. Receiver or undergoer of the action. Do you get it? So it's as simple as this: subject, performer, predicator, action itself, then object, receiver of the action. Sorry. Don't worry, I believe you understand what I'm trying to write there. Yeah, exactly. So, the receiver of the action. It's as simple as that. So, that's why the action itself is extremely important. And the person that performed the action is also important. However, we may have or may not have the person that received the action with a subject, predicator, and object. So that's just it. Let's clean that up because that was actually a digression a bit. So, the object is usually the receiver of the action. Do you get it? Now, It is also known as the complement extensive. We've said that before, that the object is also called the complement extensive. Do you get it? No. There are two types of objects. Yeah, two types of object. We have what we call the direct object, and then we have what we call the indirect object. Those are the two types of objects that we have in English, the direct object and the indirect object. So let's start with the direct object. Direct object. Example. Sandra ate the food. Ate the food. Sandra ate the food. We can do it. We can do it. The children were playing. The children were playing. Sorry, football. We're playing football. His father would have shot him. Oh, sorry, you got that? Would have shut the door. The door by now. Now you see that all of the items I wrote, all of the items I underlined, they are known as the direct object. Now, what do I mean by the direct object? You see that the direct object occurs with transitive verbs. So I'm trying to give you the characteristics of the direct object. Characteristics of the direct object. Run occurs with transitive verbs. Now, if you do not know what transitive verbs are, then you might actually have to go back to our lecture on verbal groups or verbal phrases, or you can actually go back to our lecture on basic simple sentences. Yeah, I think so. I think it should be there too, but whichever way. Now, let me just briefly explain for the sake of this slide. It usually occurs with transitive verb. What we mean by transitive verb is a verb that can take object. So, transitive verbs are verbs that take objects. Take objects. Now, of course, if we do not have a verb that can take an object, should we have an object? No. So what I'm trying to say is that if the particular verb we have in this particular sentence is one that doesn't accommodate an object, now you see that we shouldn't for any reason actually have an object. Am I right? Exactly. So that's why we say that for you to see the direct object, then know that the verbal group in that sentence or the verbal phrase must have been with a transitive verb, or must have been realized by a transitive verb. It's as simple as that. So that tells you that the verb ate in Sandra ate the food is transitive. The verb do, can do, rather, the verbal phrase can do is transitive. The verbal phrase were playing is transitive, and the verbal phrase would have shot is also transitive. So let's go on with what we're doing. So next feature of the verb is that next feature of the object rather, or better still, next feature of the direct object is it usually comes after the predicator. So its own position is mostly final or almost always final. Usually comes after the predicator. So just like we have it that the subject should come before the predicator, and then the object actually should come after the predicator. And if we have just one object, obviously that's most likely direct. So, and that would actually lead us to the third one. It is the only object in an SPO sentence. SPO sentence. Now, what I mean by this is that when the sentence that you actually have is, when the sentence contains just one object, then that object is a direct object. don't forget that this time around, as much as we're giving you the characteristics of the direct object, we are actually in a way also separating it from what should have been the indirect object. So when we have just one object in a sentence, then trust me, that object is the direct object. So that's just it. Now, however, when we have two objects, obviously, then it is, or it comes after the indirect object. So look at it, comes after the indirect object in an in an SPOO sentence. So that means that for us to have add two objects and the indirect object, the first one is indirect object while the second one is direct object. So this is the only time where it is permitted to come not immediately after the predicator, because we actually have two objects here, and then the normal structure of English is that the indirect object should come before the direct object. That's just it, as simple as that. Now, another thing about it is it corresponds to the subject of a passive sentence. No, don't worry, just forget that. Forget I actually said that. I am trying as much as possible not to give you exceptions for now, because I don't want you to get confused or to get a bit distracted, and I don't want to go beyond your level. So let's just go for this. It is characteristically realized by nouns, pronouns, noun phrases, noun clauses, gerunds, and to infinitives. Yes, realized by nouns, pronouns, noun phrases, noun clauses, gerunds, to infinitives. Yeah, so that's the sub object for you. The direct object, it can be realized by nouns, pronouns, noun phrases, noun clauses, gerunds, and to infinitives. Those are the items that can help us realize the object, or better still, can help us realize the direct object. Now, also, it maintains an intensive relationship, with the complement, in an SPOC sentence. So when we have an SPOC sentence, like we made Taufik the class rep. Yeah, let's say something like we made Taufik the class rep. So the object actually maintains an intensive relationship. Let's show you. We made Taufik the class rep. Now, so we is the subject, made is the predicator, Taufik is the object, and the class rep is the complement intensive. Now, who is the class rep here? Taufik. And who is Taufik? The complement intensive. So that's what we mean by it maintains an intensive relationship with the complement in an SPOC sentence. Do you get it? So that's just it. So, do we have another feature?